It was a crisp Boston evening, the kind where the air tastes faintly of cinnamon in the leaves, painted in fiery shades of amber and crimson, tumbled gently from the trees, carrying with them the quiet poetry of autumn. Emma, an event coordinator at the historic Beacon Street Library, hurried down the cobblestone path with a paper cup of pumpkin spice coffee warming her hands, her breath visible in the cool air. Her life had been a steady rhythm of books, schedules, and solitary walks home, a life she loved, but one that lacked the kind of passionate spark she read about in the novels she shelved every day. That night, the library was hosting a book launch for a debut novelist whose work had become an overnight sensation. His name was Daniel Hart, tall, with tousled brown hair, a quiet confidence, and a way of carrying himself that made the air around him feel charged. Emma had seen his photo in the event flyer, but in person, there was something more, an unassuming warmth in his eyes, as if he noticed things other people missed. The event began under the soft glow of vintage chandeliers, with Emma welcoming guests before introducing Daniel to a full house. His voice, rich and deliberate, seemed to weave through the room like music, every word he spoke hanging in the air for a moment before settling into the hearts of those listening. When it ended, a line formed for book signings, and Emma, fulfilling her role, moved quietly through the crowd. Eventually, she found herself standing directly before him. "Thank you for tonight," he said, signing the last copy in front of him. "You made everything so easy." Emma smiled, feeling unexpectedly nervous. "Well, you made my job easy. You speak like your words are meant for the heart." He tilted his head slightly, as if he'd just been given the most intriguing compliment of the night. That brief exchange would have been the end of it, but fate had other plans. Over the next few weeks, Daniel kept returning to the library under the pretense of research. Sometimes he brought her coffee. Sometimes he simply sat at a corner table, writing in a worn leather notebook. Slowly, conversation threads stretched between them, about literature, music, why Boston winters felt lonelier than others, and the kind of love people often mistook for coincidence. Emma learned that Daniel had grown up in Vermont, had lost his mother young, and had been writing stories as a way to keep her memory alive. Daniel learned that Emma collected vintage postcards from places she'd never been, each one a tiny wish folded into her dreams. One evening, as snow began to fall unexpectedly early that year, Daniel appeared at her desk holding 2 steaming cups of hot chocolate. "The streets look like they're out of a Christmas card," he said, his breath curling into the frosty air between them. They stepped outside, walking down the quiet street as shop windows glowed with holiday lights, and Emma found herself telling him things she'd never told anyone, about the loneliness that sometimes crept in, about the way she'd always felt like a supporting character in everyone else's story. He stopped under a street lamp, the snow catching his hair, and said softly, "You're the main character, Emma. You just don't know it yet." It was in that moment she realized the shift. Something in her chest, fragile and warm, was starting to grow. Winter passed into spring, and Daniel's visits became less about research and more about presence. They explored the city together. Old jazz clubs, hidden parks, the farmer's market where Emma insisted on buying flowers for no reason. Every shared laugh, every lingering glance, stitched them closer together, until one evening in April, standing on the Longfellow Bridge watching the Charles River shimmer under the city lights, Daniel took her hand. "I'm leaving for a book tour in Europe," he said, and Emma's heart stumbled. "For how long?" "A few months," he admitted, "but I don't want this to be a pause. I want to be a chapter we write together, no matter where I am." They kissed for the first time that night, a slow, certain kiss that felt less like a beginning and more like a promise. The months apart were hard, filled with video calls that stretched late into the night, postcards that traveled oceans, and moments when the distance felt unbearable. But every time doubt crept in, Emma remembered the way Daniel had looked at her under that street lamp, as if she was someone worth waiting for. When summer came, Daniel returned, earlier than planned. She found him in the library, leaning against her desk, holding a bouquet of sunflowers. "I missed home," he said, "but mostly I missed you." That night, they walked back to the bridge where they had first kissed. The city was alive with the hum of summer, the air warm and sweet. Daniel took a deep breath, reached into his pocket, and pulled out a small velvet box. "Emma," he said, voice unsteady but sure. "You've been in my story since the day we met, but I want you in every chapter from here on. Will you marry me?" Tears blurred her vision, but she nodded before the words could even leave her mouth. In that moment, the world seemed to fall away, the river shimmering, the city breathing, the two of them standing in the glow of something rare and lasting. And as the summer night wrapped around them, Emma realized that the spark she had once searched for in the pages of other people's stories had been hers all along. It had just been waiting for Daniel to turn the page.